You're welcome to the reproductive health segment with Dr. Ajayi. My name is Dr. Abayomi Ajayi, and today we are continuing our discussion on female infertility. And today we're going to be looking at tubal factor in female infertility. We know that the woman contributes about 40% to the causes of infertility in this environment, equally as the man. And also we know that the combined factors contribute the other 20%. Now, the commonest reason why a woman might have a challenge with fertility is the tubal factor, what is normally called the tuboperitoneal factor in this environment, because the tubes and the peritoneum, or the covering surface, they're taken together. So the test that we do to look out for the contribution of the woman to infertility, the first and foremost is what we call hysterosalpingogram, or the X-ray of the tubes and the uterus. This, like the name suggests, this looks at the inside of the tubes and the uterus, and therefore it tells us if there's anything wrong with the tubes. The other test, if you have not forgotten, is that we do what we call an ovarian reserve, where we do the hormone assay on day 3, between day 2 and day 5, to see that the woman still has a good egg stock. And then sometimes we also look out for ovulation. We can do a day 23 progesterone, and all these tests I'm sure you are familiar with. You can also use ultrasound to see whether a woman is ovulating or not. And the last test that we do, it's ultrasound. This can help you to see whether there is the presence of endometriosis. Some of this terminology, I'm sure the frequent listeners must be used to. We can look at other things that are present. And one other test that we do, you remember there was an episode we did on endoscopy in infertility. You sometimes have to do hysteroscopy or laparoscopy to see some of these things that you suspect. Now, what I want us to pay particular attention today is the management of the tubal factor. There are two ways of managing the tubal factor in infertility. Either you're doing a laparotomy or surgery to cut through and through the abdomen, or you are doing a laparoscopy, or what we call a pinhole surgery. You remember the endoscopy in infertility. Now, if you're doing a laparotomy, tubal surgery used to be the mainstay of management in tubal infertility, but of course, the yield is very low. Most centers have recorded less than 10% success rate. Usually, we say between 5 to 10% success rate for these tubal surgeries. And therefore, because of technology now, people are beginning to shift away from tubal surgery. But of course, we cannot say it's a never, because there's some patients that, especially when you have done a laparoscopy, you can just see that it's just a tiny bit of thing that's holding up the tube. Then such people can still benefit from tubal surgery. But for extensive surgeries, really and truly, they don't have any place anymore in the management of tubal infertility. So the mainstay of treatment in tubal infertility, it's ART, or assisted reproductive techniques, or simply put, IVF. Now, maybe before I go into that, one thing I need to say categorically, without mincing words, is that things like tubal flushing should never be done. They're risky things, and they achieve nothing. So really and truly, when I hear people talking about I did tubal flushing, I just wince, because really they don't do nothing. The analogy I usually give is that if you have a blocked sink in your kitchen, okay, you probably need something to pump out what is blocking it, rather than just continue to pour water on it, and in the hope that it will melt away. The only time that can happen if it's just oil that is blocking it, that you can use hot water to melt the oil. But if it's something real definite holding it down, then you don't have any place just putting water. And that's precisely what is done in this tubal flushing. You continue to put water into something that is already blocked. What can happen is that it continues to accumulate water, becomes a focus of infection, and you spread the infection in the peritoneal cavity. So that should never be done. Now, like I said, IVF is the mainstay of management, not IUI, not intrauterine insemination. Because if your tubes are blocked, you don't have any business doing intrauterine insemination. I've seen so many patients also that have been treated with intrauterine insemination with blocked tubes. Please, this is a no, no, no. Now, the steps in IVF is what we're going to look at, because next week we are still going to continue in the steps of IVF, but we're going to pay particular attention next week to, because I get a lot of questions from this, how we bring out the eggs and how we transfer the eggs. That will be next week. But this week we're going to just run through the steps of IVF. And we can say with the IVF, the steps can be divided into 5. The drugs or medication, the pickup, to pick up the eggs, the fertilization, which we do in the laboratory, the transfer, which is the replacement that we talked about, and then to support what we have transferred. Now, I'll just spend a few minutes about the drugs, talking about the drugs. The whole essence of using drugs in IVF so that the woman can produce more than the normal one egg that she will produce on her own. We use many regimens for this, but the commonest is what we call the long protocol, okay? And this, like I said, the whole essence is for you just to produce more than one egg. So whatever regimen is being used depends on your age, depends on your BMI, depends on what you have done before in the past. Well, the whole essence is for you to produce more than one egg. These eggs are now picked up in what we call OPU, or ovum pickup. And then we do the fertilization in the lab. And after the fertilization, either at day 3 or day 5, we are doing a replacement or transfer. And then after that, we are giving you drugs to support. And about 20 to 30%, 25 to 30% of cases, it continues to become a pregnancy. So in a nutshell, that is what IVF involves. Okay, so today we've talked about the tubal factor, and we've talked about the treatment of the tubal factor. I hope we'll see you next week. Thank you very much for listening. Stay tuned.